reflection allowed us to make these choices, but it takes some gall to be able to walk into a law firm and say, I can do this. It takes a little bit of confidence, or a lot of confidence, to be able to come in and present on something that you've never done before and pretend like you've done it many, many times. You have to be able to win over people with your personality, and you have to exude confidence so that they have confidence in you. So anyway, I do that law firm. To make a very, very long story short, by the time the ticket came up, the prosecutor was my client too. So it didn't even matter. This was in North Brunswick court. And so it didn't even matter. And so I am very, very excited. We're getting all these, and so I've always been a good salesperson as well. So I go and I talk to a whole bunch of my friends. I talk to Michelle. And by the way, during this period of time, when I've networked that first law office that Michelle worked at, she found some software, some legal software that works. And then the other law firms started using, so Michelle immediately was a partner in this thing that we had no name for yet, where she was training lawyers on how to use a computer network and how to use a case information system, basically a database, to share casework. And she was doing that basically on top of all of the other networks that we were building. And so I talked to a whole bunch of friends, and I convinced 7 of them that this is a great idea. So we start Domain Computer Services
in August
in 1997. So we're basically juniors going on seniors in college. And there's 7 of us. So just, by the way, there's 2 of us now, so a lot of things happen between now and then. But it's hard to run a business. It's hard for a startup. And the reality is, we had a lot of energy. We had a lot of initiative. We had a lot of luck, obviously. Can't always get a speeding ticket with anyone. And so, we took advantage of that opportunity, but we didn't have that many clients. Not enough to support 7 people. And so within 3 to 6 months, there was no partners left. And so we had to figure out exactly how to push this, how to move this. But we now found our true voice. Meaning, I found that being an entrepreneur, specifically, Michelle had a great deal of expertise in the legal case management, training people. So speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So the software that I had become certified in, I was actually the first certified person in this software in the state of New Jersey, but I was also only 20, and also just about to graduate college. And so I have a funny story. I told Gina this during our first meeting, which was a lot of these attorneys, they like to have business lunches, right? So I had to go to a business lunch, and I'm 20. And we were talking about a big deal where I was going to sell like 100 licenses for this particular software, which was big for us. So I'm sitting there, we sit down, I'm ordering my salad, and he says to me, the senior partner of the firm turns to me and says, "So Michelle, what are you going to drink?" "Yeah, I'll have a Coke." "No, come on, you have to have something better than Coke. We're just about to make a business deal. What do you want to drink?" "Coke." And then, "No, come on, let's have a glass of wine. Let's do this." I'm 20 years old. I'm not even legal. I can't even drink. So I told them, "Yeah, I'm just going to have a Coke. I'll have a Coke." "Oh, okay, fine. See, this is why I hire you to do the work, because you're responsible and you're accountable, and I like that. So I'm going to have the drink." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, you go ahead," because this was stressful for me. So anyhow, it was my first kind of foray into the adult world, networking, connecting with people. I have to be able to kind of get myself out of tricky situations, but also, remain true to myself and remain true to what I believe in. And I think that those 3 principles that my parents had taught me, that accountability, application of one's intelligence to get out of situations, that really helped me in a lot of tough ones. Especially when you're training people and you have to kind of figure out what makes them tick, how they're going to learn from you, because how well you train those people is how I get paid. So if someone comes up and says, "You know what, I didn't understand anything that you told me over the last 2 days," I'm in big trouble. So my job was about connections, was about communicating, which is where that English degree college in my adult life. So we put the Steve Jobs quote up here because, first of all, he's kind of, our industry icon. And what we like about this is that he says, just don't settle. Don't settle. You have to help your kids. You have to help whoever you're starting your business with find your passion. Just don't go through the grind. We have one life, right? Find your passion. Allow your children, have a conversation with your kids, have a conversation with your partner about what it is that makes you get up every morning. Sometimes it kind of stinks, you don't want to get up at 4:30 in the morning when I'm a kid, but then you make the most of the day. So for me, it was software training. For Rashaad, it was entrepreneurialism.
It was the entrepreneurial. And there's other stories of where I had always had an inkling for entrepreneurism, even before. But now I actually had an opportunity to taste it. And I absolutely loved it. And so building a business, if you think about it, I could have been a doctor. And I probably would have been just fine as a doctor, but I'm not going to lie. I may not be as excited about it as I am about what I do right now. I don't know that I would work as hard as I do. Or if I did, I would be way more stressed out about it. And don't get me wrong, I'm stressed out now, but I enjoy the stress now. It's what gives me the energy because I'm doing something that I love. Now, you hear a lot of these stories about, do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. So then kids come immediately and they're like, okay, well then I'm going to get a job, in an amusement park or something. It's not that, honey and rosy. You have to show value to someone. You have to be able to create a product or create a service or deliver something. But what's important is figuring out what that is going to be for you, where you can provide value. And so what you can do with your kids, and what was done with us, or specifically, I can speak in my own scenario, is my parents talked to me. Meaning, I always had a voice. And the voice, even in the essence of when we were buying a car, they asked me for my advice. Now, did they really care about my advice? No, but I thought I did. I thought they did. When we were buying a house, when we were going, it was never you're a kid, just be quiet. And so that's one thing that we find where, there's a lot of folks who have the mentality of, I'm a parent and my job is to give you guidance. I'm going to tell you what's right and what's wrong. And so therefore, I'm going to tell you what to do. Think about how unique it is to be able to ask a kid, what do you want to do? And then you guide them in the right direction. So we were going to go to medicine. We found our voice and we were going to become lawyers. But then through happenstance, through other opportunities, we found that our true callings were something else. And by the way, we're 41. I don't know that we're done. So, we have, as we were building Domain, as we were building Domain, and this is something that I do another time. This isn't so much about developing your children. This is more about succeeding in the workplace. I found the value of reputation was incredibly important. Meaning, reputation was one of the single biggest identifiers of success in the professional world. Meaning, those who can build a strong reputation. And so we built bizratings.com, and then even more recently, we have a huge issue at Domain in getting technical talent. We have to actually offshore to India and Philippines and things along those lines in order to get enough service desk talent. So we have a program now with Dr. Wong at Mercer County Community College where we built the Tech Academy, where we're hiring their students and they are actually providing IT support rather than us hiring people overseas. And so our passion has, as we've been exposed to new problems, our passion has changed. It's moved. But one thing has remained constant, and that is we are completely engaged in the process. And so, this gets back to the helicopter parent analogy that Michelle had said. As parents, you have to decide what the proper level of control and guidance is. You know, you can't be absent and just say, okay, Ava, you're 11. Can you look at this mortgage and like, should I get it? You know, so you can't do, you know, things that don't make any sense. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that an 11-year-old can give guidance on. And if they see that that can move the needle in the direction that the family is going in, you have now built somebody who is capable and confident. I remember one of the things, and this is another Steve Jobs quote. It's not on this one, but the world is created by people like us. You know, and every time I drive by Manhattan, I mean now not so much because I'm there all the time, but I remember the first couple of times the thought hit me. You know, and you see these huge buildings and you see these huge bridges, and they were all made by humans, and they were no better than me. And so, having the kids know that, well, we're big into green energy now, alternative energy. My kids go around saying that they're saving the world, and you know what? I want them to feel like they are. It's a little piece of it, but they now think that that is not beyond them. They are not just a cog in the wheel, because that's the big thing. You know, the real kind of differentiation between the people that really succeed and those that don't. Those that don't are cogs their entire life. You know? And in order to have them think outside of that, they need to know very early on that their potential is incredibly high. Human potential is incredibly high. Now, I'm not saying that everyone needs to, you know, go to the moon or something like that, but find what your voice is. Find what your voice is. Help your kids find what their voice is. And so, what is that level of control that you need to provide, guidance you need to provide? And you know, the analogy that I use all the time with my staff when we're talking about even giving them guidance is the teaching a kid how to ride a bike. You know, if you hold on to that seat for too long, you know, so the helicopter parents want to ride a bike for the kid. Get off, that obviously is totally extreme. If you're completely absent and you never even hold the seat, you know, the kid might get a lot of scrapes and bruises. They may even injure themselves. But you have to pick what is that level of contact, that level of guidance that you need to provide. If you hold on for way too long, it's going to take a long time for them to learn how to ride a bike. So you need to be able to back off. You need to be able to provide guidance at a safe distance without completely overwhelming them. And so our AP, and by the way, I am not a believer of this, you know, everyone gets a participation award either. You know, so I don't think you give it just to make them feel good about living or being. No, you want them to be able to distinguish themselves. And so I like the idea of awards. I like the idea of competition. But you have to provide them guidance and structure and safety along those lines as well. And so now we're going to kind of move a little bit to you know, just some of the other tidbits that we've gone. So that's kind of, you know, the backstory of me and Michelle. But here's some other things that have been very meaningful to us. So you'll see here, what is the one quality? And so there's a study that was done where they were trying to do, you know, for the same reason I think a lot of folks showed up today. You know, what are those common indicators of success? What are those things that you can do to make sure that you give a higher likelihood of success? So there have been studies about this. You know, it's a scientific approach. And they measured a whole bunch of things like IQ, like you know, what college people went to, what they looked like, weight, all of that sort of stuff. The number one quality after this study, highest predictor of success, is grit. So, me and Michelle may not win the absolute, you know, and this is the other thing I mentioned. Steve Shea was here. We graduated with him. He was the person who talked last time. He was the valedictorian of our class in West Windsor. And you know, as I said, if I was in Ewing, I would have been the valedictorian there. I skidded in like the top 10% in West Windsor. So, you know, I'm not saying I'm stupid. I'm a smart guy, but not over the top. It's interesting. We now hire people, and we give people IQ tests. We give them a whole bunch of different things when we hire folks. Believe it or not, if someone has too high an IQ, for some roles, it's a red flag. Unless we measure for some other things. And luckily, we do measure for other things. So grit. So what is grit? Grit is passion and perseverance for long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. It is moving, refusing to give up, pushing. So there's a whole bunch of other things too, but the studies have shown, and I will give you a real-world kind of attestation to this as well. Even in our staff, our staff that get promoted the most, those that succeed the most, those are the ones that have grit. That essentially, and if you can teach your kids how to have grit, it's very, very important. So I guess that's kind of the question. How do you teach your kids to have grit? One thing's for sure, don't do their work for them. Right? That is the opposite of how to teach them grit. So, let's go back to the bike analogy. If I want my kid to have the most grit possible, I guess I just never hold the seat at all, perhaps. But you don't want to go overboard. If they injure themselves, if they hurt themselves, they may never even get on the bike again. So you need to provide enough support. But you need to allow them to feel the benefits of success. They need to know what it's like to win. They need to want to repeat that over and over again. And by the way, feeling like what it is like to win is not a participation award. No one thinks the participation award is winning. But then you give them encouragement. But the reality is, at the end of the day, they have to have the grit themselves. If you are their grit, as soon as they leave the house, that may all fall apart. If you are too much grit, or if you are pushed too much and it's not coming from them, that's when we have people who get hurt. And you have sad stories. So you have to find that right balance. But it all comes from you spending time with them, not just keeping them accountable, which is important, you have to do that, but giving them that guidance, that constant affirmation that they should keep pushing, that they should not give up. So this is another, came from another TED Talk recently that Elon Musk gave. A lot of folks know about Elon Musk. He calls it forward-moving mentality. It's the same thing. It's grit. Don't dwell on mistakes. Learn from them. Move on. There's too many people where you get hit by something. You have a poor grade, right, Ava? Don't get too depressed if you we all get poor grades. The goal though is to keep pushing forward. Okay, what did I get wrong? What do I need to do differently next time? How do I get the A? If the A is what I want, does the A make me feel good? Yeah, A makes me feel good. So how do I move forward? How do I fill in the gaps? And I will persevere. I will push. They have to be reachable goals, though. So don't. Everyone can't. Your definition of success can't always be some sort of pie in the sky. And never give up. Never. So grit is one. The next area we want to talk about is emotional intelligence. This is an area that, especially in the South Asian community, is poorly understood, and we need to work on it, especially in the science and technology areas. So we're in IT, so Domain Computer Services is an IT company. IT people are known for being weird, right? IT people are known for being weird. One of the key differentiators, and we didn't realize this back then, one of the key differentiators of why Domain had success was because we were not weird IT people. And it's funny, and we take it for granted, but the reality is, especially in the technical spaces. If you have that ability to interact with people, if you have that ability to win people over with your personality, those are the people that get promoted. Those are the people that move forward. If you have a kid who is a valedictorian but cannot get along with anyone, they may be very, very smart and work in a lab somewhere later on and fix some very cool problems, but no one will want to work with them. No one will promote them. They will never run anything big because they haven't developed that other aspect of their personality that they do. You know, I'll give you a story of one of my sisters. So I have two sisters that went to West Windsor and went to Rutgers as well. Tanya is the middle sister, and so she actually did follow through and she was better at science than me and kept through and became a geneticist. So she works for a large pharmaceutical company, and she works on very blockbuster drugs. So this was a big cancer drug that was coming up, and they had been doing a ton of work on this, and they've been flying overseas, coming back, all this, and she's part of a big team. And she took some time. She's much younger than me too. She took some time off, so she never got her graduate. So she still only had a bachelor's. Everyone else on her team is a PhD, MD, PhD, all sorts of stuff. But she is right there. She's the one leading this team, or not leading this team, but very critical of this team. And they're about to make a big pitch to the regulators. This is the final step where they have to make the big pitch to the regulators. And the big boss person who's in charge of this, an MD, PhD, is coming in and she's working with Tanya, who's my sister, to give this. All of a sudden, Tanya gets called in by the real higher-ups at the company, real higher-ups. And she figures, well, what's going on? They tell her, we don't want this other lady to do the presentation, the one who really understands everything, the MD, PhD, we want you to do it. She's totally thrown off. She's like, I don't have all those letters behind my name. I don't have the credibility. I don't have all that sort of stuff. And they said, she just seems too razzle. This is the other MD, PhD. She makes things into bigger deals than they are. She doesn't instill confidence. She comes across as nervous. And so Tanya made this presentation, knocked their socks off, because she has a cool, calm demeanor, no big deal. Yeah, we'll answer. Yeah, that's a problem. No big deal. We'll handle that. De-escalated things very easily, whereas this other one would escalate everything. So now we're talking about in a real-world scenario. And then the paper got published, and Tanya's name is on there. She's like, I don't know how they put my name on there without an MD, PhD all behind it, but she is now getting promoted above and beyond these people who have all of this just because she has that emotional intelligence, ability to communicate effectively. If you are only focused on the grades and you're not doing these other things, it creates a very, very one-sided person. A one-sided person that may themselves feel stuck, and so therefore you end up having an unhealthy child. Or that unhealthy child then gets put into the world and creates an unhealthy atmosphere wherever they go, or at the very least is not somebody that people want to work with or get along with or things along those lines. And so those social interactions are incredibly important. Team sports, get them involved in team sports. And I remember way back when it was because, you want to have more stuff on your resume. No, it's not because of that. I mean, although that helps too. But it's so that way they learn to interact with people and socialize with people. Because when you go into the broader marketplace after your home, into college, in the work, you're dealing with all sorts of people from all sorts of cultures. So don't be exposed. Here we have in West Windsor, we luckily have access to a lot of South Asian families and a lot of like-minded communities. Don't stay just there though, unless you want to be really successful only in that community. But if you want to go into the broader world, you need to teach your kids to socialize, to interact. I'm not saying they need to be some sort of party folks, but they need to be able to communicate. They need to be able to socialize, to win people over with their personality. And that's something that if you don't feel like you have that in you yourself, as a first generation, second generation parent, because you don't understand the culture here as much or something. Expose them, let them go out. Let them get exposed to these other areas, and team sports is a great area. Michelle tells a good story about, exactly how her parents.
Yeah. So the reason why I put emotional intelligence up there for my own personal experience is I was telling my dad, Dad, I'm going to be addressing a whole bunch of parents from West Windsor, very successful parents who just came from other countries and want to kind of understand how to raise children in this country. I was born in the Bronx, so I don't really have a lot of insight from that. So Dad, what do you have for me? And he says, well, I think that the best thing you can tell these parents is get out of your comfort zones. Don't just stick together. Reach out into the community. Talk to other people in your offices. If you're intimidated by them, if you're not intimidated by them, if you feel like they're below you, you'll never know their story unless you ask them. Talk to them. Don't be self-conscious. And lead by example. So that's what Rashaad and I do. We come out and we talk to people, we try to find their stories, and we hope to lead by example, so these kids will then go out and have those tools to cope. But that's what emotional intelligence is. That's what.
If you develop kind, kids that have empathy, kids that can communicate effectively, I can tell you. And they obviously have to be able to provide value, intelligence, and have skills and all those sort of things. So don't walk away from that, but you have to give them that well-rounded aspect. So that way they can find their voice, but when they do find their voice, they're going to have people rooting for them. Because see, that's the other thing that a lot of people don't get. If you develop a well-rounded kid who's well-liked and is observed, this isn't about just being popular, but this is about being able to communicate effectively and being able to win over friends. They're going to have more people rooting for them, not just you, not just themselves. And in school, it may not make as much of a difference, but when you get to college and once you get further on, to be able to understand the politics of organizations and figure out how to become friendly with someone, it's incredibly important. And that's where we will see more folks, first generation, second generation, move higher up management areas in businesses and things along those lines, and not just be the folks in the lab. I mean, don't get me wrong, the lab's great, but it's better to be the guy that's hiring the people in the labs. And so we need to teach our kids to get there, and that emotional intelligence. When they did those studies, grit was number one, so perseverance. Teach them how to move forward. You get a C. Okay, you got a C. We've all gotten C's. What do you need to do? Like, what is that gap in between? Can you learn it? Do you need help with learning it? Let's learn how to kind of move that ball forward. Just never give up. But then also, the second most was EQ. It's not everyone. When people were asked, quizzed, what do you think it is? Almost everyone said IQ. They assumed IQ. IQ is like a distant third. So it's important to make sure that we develop those well-rounded kids. And not only will they be more successful, they'll be happier too. You will have a stronger relationship with them too, because guess what? You spoke to them like not a peer, a parent, but a supportive parent, not just the drill master. So that's incredibly important. So hopefully that was helpful to you guys. I think some tidbits hopefully that you can take. And now I think we're ready for some